Don't have slides on this, but for our non-English speaking folks, we have organizations, and then we also have groups. But my browser uses a Z. Okay? So I was glad this question came up because it was something that I definitely felt we need to talk about. Okay? So let's talk about what is an organization and what is a group, because now in Google Apps you can have users that belong to organizations and you have users belong to group. What are some of the differences? Maybe we'll start with the more traditional. What are groups used for?
Mailing lists.
Mailing lists. That would be the top of my list. Mailing lists, distribution lists. It's about email communications. Can you communicate to everyone in your organization you set up in Google Apps?
No.
No. What's that primarily about? If you're playing Family Feud, the top policies. Okay. So when you put users into an organization, they take on the policies of that organization. What is the only policy you can set today?
Services.
Service on, service off. What is it going to look like next week? I don't know. I have to be honest. Okay? So when you add a user, yes, you can add a user to an organization, and they take on the policies of that organization. Today it's only service on, service off. But when we talk about groups here, we talk about, I think about in terms of communications. Okay? So the top one is mailing list. So a user can belong to a group as well. Okay? What are other reasons for creating groups besides mailing lists?
Calendar, signing, right?
Okay, so calendar. And rights for sharing. Collaboration. Sharing.
Software.
Okay. You're not talking, for example, specifically with things like docs, sites, so on and so forth. Okay? So on the surface, when someone describes an organization, they usually use the word group. I've tried to avoid that, because even though it is a group of users, it's not groups in the sense of these groups. Now, what kind of groups do we have in Google Apps? To review, we have what we call the administrator groups, administrator managed groups, and also the option to have user managed groups. Okay?
Quick question on that. In the interface, in one place it says manager, and another place it says owner. I assume those are synonymous with a group.
I would think so, unless Salim wants to add. The question is when we look at the interface about groups, sometimes we see manage versus owner.
No, manager versus owner. So I assume manager was an older term.
So in the user-managed groups,
Let me bring that up.
Barry can own the group.
Yeah,
But in
you can.
user-managed groups, Barry might say, I've got so much work to do. You should be a manager and help accept registrations, accept posts.
So it's like delegating authority.
Getting some authority.
Okay.
So those are.
So you can be an owner.
Because user-managed groups, you actually have a lot more functionality.
It's synonymous, I would say, with docs, where you have the owner of a group, owner of a doc, and then you can also share. You can share the ability to edit that file, but they do not own that document. You still own that document. Okay? So in this case of a group, you're delegating the ability to manage that group, but you really own it. I think only the owner can delete the group. I don't think someone who manages a group can actually delete that. Okay? So I think it's very important that we walk away understanding the differences between organizations and groups. So thank you for asking that question. There is a relationship between the two because you're grouping users together, but the purposes are a little different. Okay? If you've come from an Active Directory environment, it's really a similar idea that in Active Directory you can have organizations that have policies that have users in it, but that organization can also have groups that you use for communications purposes. Okay?
One of the things I noticed, this might be by design, not to confuse the issue, is when I was inviting people my group, it auto-completed only for people in my organization that I was in. So it wouldn't, like, so for example, I have like 20 people already in this organization, in this entire company. Or this company. If I had like 5 or 6 people in this particular sub-org that I was in, and it only let me auto-complete or find the people in the drop-down automatically when I start typing it in.
And did you try it in the other, so
You
the,
can manually type in the email address if somebody's in a different organization
Right.
to do it, but I think it was like a friendly thing just to say, hey,
I'm just wondering, was it organization behavior or domain behavior?
it was an organization.
Okay, so that's kind of interesting. Because there, I notice there is some documentation about some limits with groups when you go to multiple domains.
Well, I think it did it primarily, let's say if you had a company of 5,000 users and you were in the IT department, well, and I'm creating a group that's only in the IT department, I don't really care about that, somebody that's in finance.
Right.
And I don't want to, like I'm typing Bob,
Yeah.
and there could be like 10 Bobs in the company.
Did you verify that if you logged in as a different user from the other organ? Okay. Okay, because if we're talking about issues,
No, I think it's actually a design thing.
yeah, but another behavior that I've noticed,
I'm not complaining. I think
no. I'm just wondering whether, before I jump to say that's how it's designed to work, I want to show you one thing here is if, so I've logged into my primary domain, and if I go to groups, and I'm going to create a new administrator group, if you notice on the bottom it says add all users within my primary domain only.
Yep.
So I'm just, well, you can only, when you log in as an administrator, you have to log in to the primary domain. So that's a question I have. I haven't, there's no way to test this scenario out, but if, I don't know if it's related or not. That's why I was asking you, was it your primary domain or your secondary domain? Does everyone see what I'm talking about here? I'm bringing up an issue. So I'm logged into my control panel and I'm creating an admin group, and you can't see this. And you'll notice add all users, that option to add all users from within, it's only your primary domain to this group. There's no option to create the group otherwise, at least as the administrator group. Okay.
So the secondary groups secondary
The user managed groups
users are out of luck.
for my administrator group. Okay. Let me see. I had a problem with this before. Let's see if that's not behaving well. I don't know if anyone else had that problem. What I want to, and here I am, I'm just exploring with everyone. The user managed groups, I have that enabled. Okay. If I go to my inbox here, now I'm going to the user managed groups. I don't know why I'm getting this error.
Just sign out. So thanks for your.
I don't know who it thinks I am.
It's Ishmael.
Oh, yeah, there, okay. There I go. See, I'm still in the browser, and you know, it thought I was still logged in as my normal user, my other user. So let me create a group here. I'm exploring with everyone. And the same thing is, it's only letting me do it as my primary domain. I'm not sure why. I haven't tried this as one of my other users. I hope I'm not confusing people. I just kind of want to explore with everyone. I just haven't used this one today. I hate Internet Explorer. Can we put that on the record for the video? If it comes up.
Is she using like IE6 or something?
No.
Well, you are an XP.
So. Okay. Does that look right to everybody? And then I want to go directly to mail. So I'm going to go to my mail client. and I don't remember what my password is. Fred Fields. It's done. Oops. CAPTCHA. Don't you love this? I lucked out. I got an easy one. I think. But anyway, the point I want to make is if you're working with secondary domains, you need to explore that a little bit. Okay? And I don't know, I don't see my groups there. Oh, thank you. Good troubleshooting there. See how we're putting all the pieces together? I planted him. There we go. So now, let me just do a refresh here. I'm going to sign out and sign back in just to make sure. There we go. Okay, so now let me go ahead and create a group. And notice what it is. It's the primary. So I don't know if this is an open issue or not. Okay. Let's see if it's on that list. I know there's a discussion about them, but I don't remember what it was. I hope this is interesting to everybody. Where's my link? Oh, that's not organizations. I'm supposed to be looking at what? Multiple domains. Okay. So the problem I'm experiencing with my secondary domain is I'm not able to create that group. So I'm going to just spend a few more minutes on this. There we go. Google Groups. Okay, I can verify that. You cannot use Google Groups to create or manage groups in non-primary domains. Okay, so users in domains other than the primary domain do not have access to the Google Groups user interface. Okay, so you're noticing that I could only use it for the primary.
They did have access to it, it was just only for the primary.
Yeah, they do have access to it, but they can't create a group with the secondary domain name. So they do have, yeah, that's a better description of it. So I can bring up user-managed groups, but I can only create groups that are in the primary domain. Okay? So for example, if let's say, what should we call a name of a group? Maybe we'll call it, I'll just call it my ski group. Okay. And then I can decide how I'm going to restrict that. We'll make that public. I just want to see how this behavior exists. Okay, group description is, I'll just call this my ski group. I I know I'm walking down a path here. Okay, and then I'm going to add my email addresses directly, and I just want to verify that I can add users from both groups. I mean, from both domains. Okay, so I'm going to add Claude Monet. Oh, that auto-completed for me. That's cool. And then I can't remember the name of my other user. Let me see if it'll auto-complete for Bishmel. Yep. So I can add users into this group from multiple domains. Did you see how the autocomplete was working for both? So there is a good thing here going on. And then I can add the members. But the group is, the email address is of my primary domain, even though I can have members within the secondary domain as well. Do you see that? Okay. So I wanted you to see if, I don't know if anyone experimented with that. Did anyone, when they added their group, try that? So maybe you didn't notice it, but the groups are of your primary domain. Do you see that? So you cannot create a group name. The group email address has to be in the primary, not the secondary, but it can contain members of the secondary domain. Okay. So I think that's what what that little article is telling you about in terms of limits.
Are there any plans to develop that?
I would assume so, but I don't know what the time frame is for that. Okay. So I have so I struggle with something. It's like how far do I take you and tell you I don't know where this is going? But at the same time, I want you to know because I want you to stumble on it here. So it's not to show you how the product doesn't work. I want you to know how the product works today. So when you go to the customer site, you're kind of prepared for this. So you're not surprised. If that makes sense. So I would imagine that this is going to evolve just like everything else in the product is. It's only, what I tell people, it's only 3 weeks old. So it's sort of in an infancy state. Okay, can we turn the thing off?